Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're heading down south to Argentina. Things are getting pretty shaken up down there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a real-life economic experiment is happening.
Exactly. And it's got everyone watching.
We've got this article from Investor. It's called Flash Update. Javier Milei, Argentina's radical shift and the fight for economic survival.
Catchy title.
Right. And the content is even wilder.
I can imagine.
Okay, so picture this. You're living in Argentina in like late 2023.
Okay.
And inflation is like a crazy 200%.
Wow. So like everything is super expensive.
Yeah,
Right.
basically. And no one knows what their money is even worth.
That's got to be a scary situation.
Totally. It's like breeding this desperation. People are like looking for any solution.
Right. Anyone who can offer some kind of stability.
Yeah, and that's where Javier Milei comes in.
Ah, the new president.
Yeah, the self-described anarcho-capitalist president.
Meaning,
Basically, he wants to like dismantle the government as we know it.
really, like completely.
Well, as much as possible. He's all about minimal state intervention. Let the free market run wild. You know?
It's like a true libertarian.
Exactly. He even campaigned on this platform of chainsawing government spending.
Chainsawing, huh? That's pretty evocative.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But it kind of shows you how radical he is.
definitely. So he's like taking these ideas that most people consider fringe
Right.
and putting them into practice in a major economy.
It's a huge gamble, and the question is, did it work?
Good question.
Well, the article points out some early successes, especially with stabilizing prices.
That makes sense. I mean, when inflation is that out of control, businesses can't plan, they can't invest.
Exactly. They even tell this story of an entrepreneur, Diego Fenolio.
Okay.
His company's called Rapa Nui, and they've actually seen a boost since Milei's policies came in.
Interesting.
So for someone like Fenolio, this stability, even if it comes at a cost, is a huge relief.
Yeah, but I imagine there's another side to this coin.
No, definitely. There's a big BUT here.
Mm-hmm.
While some are experiencing the benefits, the article also shows like a dark side to Milei's policies.
The social cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Poverty rates are surging, and a lot of the social safety nets, like food subsidies and healthcare assistance,
The things that a lot of people rely on.
yeah, those have been like slashed.
Wow.
And it's not just theoretical. They describe Buenos Aires,
Okay.
where you have this stark visual contrast.
Like what?
You see the wealthy elite thriving, but then on the other hand, you have people increasingly reliant on solidarity kitchens just to eat.
It's like this growing inequality.
Exactly, and it really highlights this tension that comes with radical economic change.
There are always winners and losers.
The question is, are the gains worth the sacrifices?
Right. And are those sacrifices being distributed fairly?
Yeah, and nowhere is this tension more apparent than in Milei's approach to education.
Oh, how so?
The guy slashed funding by 70%.
70%. That's a huge cut.
Yeah, it's crazy. And to understand why this is such a big deal,
Yeah.
you have to look at the historical context. In Argentina, free public universities have been like the pathway to social mobility.
Right. It's how generations of Argentines have climbed the economic ladder.
Exactly. But now that pathway is getting narrower.
Wow.
The article tells the story of Sofia Armando. She's a law student,
Okay.
and she sees these cuts as a direct attack on her future.
That's understandable.
Yeah, for her, it's not just about budget numbers, it's about opportunity.
So what's Milei's reasoning for these cuts?
He basically argues that public universities have become like bastions of Marxist ideology,
Interesting.
and that private institutions should play a larger role.
So a very ideological stand.
Yeah, it's this stark ideological divide that's playing out in the lives of real people like Sophie.
It's fascinating, though, because despite all of this, Milei has a lot of support among young people and entrepreneurs.
Right, it seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does, but if you look at it from their perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah, like the article introduces us to Fabrizio Ferrari. He's a 23-year-old entrepreneur, and he actually believes Milei's policies will create a better future for his generation.
Interesting. So he sees it as an opportunity.
Yeah, a chance to build something new with less government interference.
And I imagine for many entrepreneurs, the appeal is deregulation and lower taxes.
Exactly. They see Milei as someone who understands their challenges and wants to make things more competitive.
It's like this whole new landscape is opening up for them.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, for sure.
Definitely a lot to think about. So it's kind of fascinating, right? You have people like Fenolio and Ferrari who are like optimistic about the future under Milei.
Yeah.
But then there's also those who are struggling just to make ends meet.
Right, those who are bearing the brunt of these radical changes.
Exactly.
It's like Argentina is at this crossroads, trying to figure out, you know, will this short-term pain lead to long-term gain, or is it just going to worsen inequality?
And the article doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Right.
It acknowledges there are strong arguments on both sides.
Yeah, like on the one hand, you have Milei supporters
Right.
who believe these drastic measures were like the only way to get the country back on track.
Like a shock to the system.
Yeah, and they think a stronger economy will benefit everyone eventually.
But then there are those who are really worried about the human cost.
Totally.
They see Miley's policies as heartless and unsustainable.
And they think ignoring the most vulnerable will just lead to more unrest down the line.
Exactly.
It's almost like Argentina is conducting this live experiment, and the whole world is watching.
With bated breath.
So let's dig a little deeper into these cuts to social programs.
Okay.
What does that actually look like, you know, for everyday Argentines?
Well, we're talking about reduced funding for things like healthcare housing assistance, food subsidies.
Essential services.
Exactly. Programs that many people relied on to survive.
So how has that actually impacted their lives?
The article doesn't sugarcoat it, you know.
Yeah.
We hear stories of families having to choose between food and medicine, people losing their homes because they can't afford rent anymore.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. It's just this real sense of desperation.
It makes you wonder, is there a way to achieve economic stability without causing so much suffering?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Finding that balance between fiscal responsibility and social welfare.
It's a challenge every country faces to some degree,
Yeah, for sure.
but it just seems particularly acute in Argentina right now.
Absolutely. This whole situation really highlights that economic policy isn't just about numbers.
Right.
It's about people's lives.
Their hopes, their struggles,
It's about the choices we make as a society.
and the kind of future we want to create.
And those are questions we should all be asking ourselves no matter where we live.
Because what happens in one country can have these ripple effects.
Absolutely, especially in a globalized world.
And the article ends on this note of uncertainty,
Yeah.
suggesting that both Miley's future and the country's future are kind of hanging in the balance.
Right, and that uncertainty permeates everything.
Like, will Miley's supporters stick with him if the prosperity doesn't materialize?
Right, or will the social fabric of Argentina just unravel under the strain of these changes?
Yeah, these are big, complex questions.
No easy answers.
You know, it's interesting because the article doesn't just focus on the economics. It also touches on the political side of things.
Right, like how Milei even got elected in the first place.
Yeah, his rise to power really reflects this global trend, you know, this dissatisfaction with traditional politics.
Totally. It's like this wave of populism sweeping across so many countries.
And the article highlights this desperation among voters.
Yeah, this willingness to kind of embrace someone who promises to shake things up.
Even if it means taking a huge risk.
Exactly.
People were so fed up with the status quo, you know,
Right. The same old parties failing to deliver.
that they were ready for something completely different.
Even if it meant potential instability.
And that makes Miley's position even more precarious.
Oh, definitely.
He's got to deliver on these promises and fast.
Or risk losing the people who put him there.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against this backdrop of global economic uncertainty, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
We're seeing rising inflation, supply chain issues, geopolitical tensions.
It's a volatile time.
So Argentina's experiment is unfolding at a pretty critical moment.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder, could what's happening there have implications for other countries facing economic pressure?
That's a good question, and it shows how interconnected we all are, you know?
Yeah,
Economic policies in one country can have these ripple effects.
totally. Decisions made in Buenos Aires could influence trends around the world.
It's a butterfly effect.
So this deep dive has been quite a roller coaster.
For sure.
It's given us a glimpse into the complexities of Argentina's situation,
The economic hardship, the political upheaval.
the human cost of these policies.
It's a story that's still unfolding and one that we should all be paying attention to.
Definitely. So as we wrap things up, what are your takeaways, dear listener?
Yeah, what stands out to you?
Has this deep dive changed how you think about Argentina or even the global economy?
I hope it sparks some deeper thinking about the choices we face.
Right. The balance between economic growth and social well-being.
The importance of finding solutions that benefit everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.